As a Batman fan, I'd like to think that I've done a fairly good job when it comes to learning and understanding Batman's mythos on the entertainment side of things. I've watched and reviewed every single live-action Batman movie, starting with Batman 89 to The Batman. I've played every Batman video game, excluding the licensed GameCube ones, which I plan to stream here on YouTube. I've even watched the entirety of Gotham multiple times now. However, there is one key piece of Batman media that I've put off from watching for an incredibly long time now, and I'm happy to say that I finally changed that. I've watched the iconic, beloved movie that set the groundwork for the many iterations of Batman media we have today, and what is now one of my favorite comic book movies ever made, Batman 1966. This is the first one at the movies that was made in color after the first two in the 1940s were done in black and white. Watching Batman 66 was one hell of an experience. This movie may be one of the most comic book movies of all time. What I mean by that is that Batman 66 is so campy that it feels like a walking, talking, or breathing comic book adaptation. You can feel every single panel that was brought to life through every boom, pow, or oh no, how will our lovable caped crusaders ever get out of this situation throughout Batman 66. Every moment, every train of thought, every solution to a riddle, and every jump to a conclusion that these characters make will all make you think the same thing. What the And yet, the movie still works all these years later. What makes this first Batman movie work is the fact that it has something I think a lot of movies no longer have today, and that's a ton of heart. This movie shamelessly wears its heart on its sleeve, and yes, I mean that positively. You can tell that Adam West and Burt Ward had a ton of fun running around as these zany and loved superheroes Batman and Robin. You can tell that the actors playing Batman's rogue gallery put every ounce of effort possible into playing these unbelievable over-the-top villains that could only work in a comic book movie or TV show. As for my favorite thing about Batman 66, this movie's script is incredible. The absurd, over-the-top, and gigantic heaps of logic that this script has only tells you one thing, and that's that this movie's scriptwriters were probably dying of laughter as they wrote this movie. Batman 66 has such a good script that I'm not even going to try and describe it. This may be one of my favorite lines in this movie because I don't even know how they got to this train of thought, but it's so wild that it's actually kind of golden.
But wait, it happened at sea. See? See for Catwoman.
I'm sure most Batman 66 fans fully expected me to use that line as a perfect example of this movie's stellar script, but for those of you who haven't watched Batman 66, I promise you that example is just scratching the surface. To give another example of why I adore this movie's script and creativity so much, this movie has a consistently ongoing bit where Riddler puts a bunch of riddles in the sky. Why? I don't know if I'm being entirely honest. However, his riddles are always two-part riddles. Here's one of the riddles. What does a turkey do when he flies upside down? And what weighs 6 ounces, sits in a tree, and is very dangerous? The first answer is he gobbles up. That makes sense, right? The second answer is a sparrow with a machine gun. Here's what happens when Batman, Robin, and the GCPD combine these two answers.
Yes, gentlemen. The criminal catalyst in this entire affair, our old arch enemy, Catwoman.
Do you see why I adore this movie? When it comes to having the ridiculous one-liners, the over-the-top villains, the lovable superhero, the semi-pointless but important sidekicks, and make you buy into the fact that what you're seeing takes place within a comic book universe, Batman 66 has it all. Even though this movie shouldn't have aged well, what's helped Batman 66 all these years later is the fact that every aspect of this movie ties back to such an incredibly strong centerpiece, Adam West's Batman. I know we all have our opinions regarding who's the best live-action Batman, whether we're talking about Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, or Robert Pattinson. Before any of you dare to type into the comment section of this video, what about Val Kilmer? He's my favorite Batman. What about George Clooney? He's my favorite Batman. Don't you dare. I've made videos about Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and everyone told me I was in the wrong for liking those movies, so I don't want to hear it. However, it's time that all of us put some respect on Adam West's Batman. Yes, I didn't grow up watching the Batman TV series as a kid, but after watching Batman 66, I finally understand why Adam West was such a cemented actor. He was a star in this role. Using Batman as the glue that not only keeps this movie together, but showcases both the villain and hero perspectives of this movie was kind of genius. By doing so, Batman 66 consistently emphasized that Batman feels incredibly human in this movie, which is something I don't think we see often enough in various forms of media these days when it comes to Batman. In Batman 66, he's incredibly intelligent, but he's not smart enough to not fall in love with Catwoman when she's not wearing her Catwoman costume. He's an experienced hero, but he can't save the day without the help of Robin. He may feel like he has some level of plot armor like any other superhero in a superhero movie, but you still get the satisfaction of seeing him work to save the day regardless of the hurdles that come his and Robin's way. Whether it's intentional or not, Batman 66 reminds us in certain situations that any of us could be Batman in this Batman universe. For example, at one point in time, Batman is on the phone with an admiral trying to figure out what the Rogue Gallery is up to. The admiral, however, didn't realize that the Penguin tricked the admiral into unintentionally helping him despite using P.N. Gwyn as a name. When Batman has this realization, this is the reaction.
Disposing of pre-atomic submarines to persons who don't even leave their full addresses.
Good day, Admiral.
You can just feel the annoyance, frustration, and anger that Batman is feeling in that moment, and it's hilarious. You can tell that in his mind, he's just like, are you kidding me right now? After hearing that news, this works, you know? It works because Batman 66 does such a good job of depicting the type of Batman we don't see today. A version of Batman that we should want to see more often. And quite frankly, the type of Batman George Clooney tried to depict in Batman and Robin, but failed. A lighthearted, enjoyable, and far more human version of Batman. Shockingly, the same thing can be said about the villains of Batman 66. Are Joker, Riddler, Penguin, and Catwoman the best villains in the world? No, absolutely not. If anything, they're genuinely some of the most lackluster villains I've seen in a superhero movie. However, watching them panic, bicker, and lose focus as they try to execute their world domination plan is ridiculously entertaining because these villains almost have a childlike energy to them. There's never a moment where you truly feel like this Rogue Gallery knows what they're doing. It's more like them constantly regrouping and trying to figure out a new random idea to execute after Batman and Robin stop our previously non-thought out plan that sounded good on paper. Now, while that sounds terrible, I promise you that's not the case. I know that we have entirely different standards today when it comes to what we want out of a new Joker, a new Penguin, a new Catwoman, a new Riddler, or any other member of Batman's Rogue Gallery due to the wild amount of comic book media pieces these directors and producers can pull from today. However, when you strip down these iconic characters and remove almost every ounce of depth or the traits that we expect out of these characters today, Batman 66's Rogue Gallery is exactly what you're picturing in your head. A very quirky yet creative group of characters that act incredibly similar to one another, have one or two traits that are some of the key things we expect out of these characters today, and a bunch of villains that share one common goal, wanting to take down Batman so they can rule the world. The only problem, or at least small critique, that I have regarding this movie's lovable villains is Joker and Catwoman really don't do much for me in this movie. If I'm being entirely honest, it's not even because they're bad characters per se, it's just that they're kind of the least entertaining characters in Batman 66. Joker is just kind of walking around laughing all the time and doing absolutely nothing unless he's told to do something by Riddler or Penguin, and Catwoman is more so used as a plot device to give us some scenes with Adam West playing Bruce Wayne than anything else, which was one of Adam West's key demands for this movie according to the IMDb page for Batman 1966. There's a little bit of trivia for you Batman fans who didn't know that. It also doesn't help that in comparison to Joker and Catwoman, Riddler and Penguin are the absolute stars of this movie alongside Adam West. Riddler and Penguin, played by Frank Gorshin and Burgess Meredith, respectively, accomplished the goal of reaching the standard that was probably set by Adam West. Their energy is unmatched. There's not a single moment where I got tired of hearing Penguin do his ridiculous wah 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 sound effects. Yes, I know, that was probably a terrible impersonation, but I tried my best. As someone who adores the Penguin to the point where he's one of my favorite Batman villains, there's just a level of magic that comes from watching the Penguin in this movie. Finally getting to see where the inspiration started for this character as he walks around like a penguin, uses a penguin submarine, has a ridiculous amount of counter plans in case things go wrong, and has what is now an iconic outfit that's still inspiring modern day iterations of Penguin, genuinely made me smile. As for the Riddler, it's easier for me to appreciate this character more than I appreciate the Penguin because of what I found out after watching this movie. I never knew that this movie is what ended up cementing the Riddler as one of the iconic villains in Batman's mythos thanks to his actor. Of course, with immediate hindsight, it makes total sense. The Riddler in Batman 66 is the standout villain. He's overly energetic, out of control, and sometimes incredibly hard to take seriously because of how in-depth his riddles are. But at the same time, he's kind of scary. He's a legitimate threat that actually makes you concerned for the safety of Batman and Robin. There are moments in that movie where I'm sitting here watching the Riddler banter with Batman or the Rogue Gallery thinking to myself, this dude is pretty reckless. He's literally out of his damn mind. How did he even think of that or jump to that conclusion? All because of him consistently trying to explain various incredibly overthought out plans that only he could come up with. There's not a single person in this movie that feels smarter than him. This take on the Riddler is so good that it feels like the answer to what if the Joker spent more time trying to actively set up elaborate plans rather than winging it more often than not. He's genuinely the embodiment of an evil yet intelligent Joker that I never knew I wanted. He's such an engaging character that he manages to maintain your attention. That's how entertaining he is. He laughs all the time in menacing ways, so of course he has that Joker attribute down, and the amount of ideas he has throughout this movie showcases just how smart he is, even if he gets in his own way of his pure genius. I know it's gonna sound weird since I am fairly young, but I'm shocked that one of my biggest takeaways from Batman 66 is my newfound appreciation for this Riddler and the Riddler in general. If you asked me, who do you think you're gonna appreciate the most after watching Batman 66, I probably would have never mentioned Riddler whatsoever. I probably would have said Penguin or Batman, but here we are raving about this iteration of the character that happened to put him at the forefront of Batman's mythos. That's a testament to not only how good this Riddler is, but how much heart and love was put into that role, just like the rest of Batman 66. Batman 66 is absolutely being added to my favorite superhero movies of all time list. This may be a wild statement, but I do think this movie is one of the best comic book movies ever made. For every single joke, line, action scene, musical cue, and creative idea, such as everything Batman uses having the name Bat in front of it, you can mentally feel yourself turning the page of a comic book. For every punch or kick, you can feel exactly where the boom, pow, or kapow would be on the panel of a comic book. This movie, quite literally, is the perfect example of a live-action movie comic book adaptation. The universe is ridiculous, the characters are all lovable fools, and the solution to a majority of the problems make absolutely zero sense, yet the movie is still so much fun all these years later. It might not have the tones and moods that we expect from Batman media today, but I finally understand why everyone says Adam West's Batman set the blueprint for what we have today. He's arguably the most human Batman has ever felt even all these years later, and a big part of that is thanks to his intelligence, heart, and of course, Robin, who brings the best out of him. This movie isn't perfect, but it's pretty damn good if you ask me. I genuinely didn't think that this movie would resonate with me in such a massive way, but here we are. Batman 66 is that special and truly did age way better than I thought it would.